All right, good evening, everybody. I hope everybody is having a great weekend, getting off to a good start this weekend, and hope everybody's been safe. Just want to come on for a few minutes, probably 15 minutes at the very most. But I just want to give you guys an update as to what took place today. We had a phenomenal day. Hopefully that you come in, but we had a fantastic day today working in Flossmoor, Illinois with the Joni Bradley Scott campaign. Joni Bradley Scott is a current trustee of 7 years with the village of Flossmoor. She's been a 13-year resident, I believe, there. And she is now a candidate for mayor of Flossmoor. And we, as 10 by 10 to win, which is the independent Black voting bloc that we are organizing, that is to go across all of our communities in Chicago, Cook County, and in the state of Illinois, all around. So it's not just for Chicago, but this is for really the Black community. We have to establish our own equity. And the first election that we are working with is that of the village of Flossmoor. Give you a little background as to how we got involved with Flossmoor is that a little over, well, I should say a little less than a year ago, a police officer who was the chief of police, was the first African-American hired chief of police in Flossmoor's 100-year history, that was hired as the chief of police. 2 years prior, in 2022, there was a shooting incident where it involved a resident, woman by the name of Madeline Miller, who was shot and killed by a Flossmoor police officer. Allegedly, this person was having some sort of mental episode, which is alleged that she was attacking the police officer at the time with a knife, and the police officer had to defend himself. That is the report. We're not making any judgment about that. But it certainly concerned the African-American members or residents of Flossmoor. Now, Flossmoor is a wonderful community of about 10,000 residents. It is considered to be an upper middle class community. They have about 63% of the community of Flossmoor now is Black. 100% of the municipal administration is white. Now, between the incident of the killing of Madeline Miller, and then later they hired an African-American chief of police by the name of Jarrell Jones. And within 6 months of his hire, there seemed to have been some concerns about members of the community that it had gotten out that they were seeking to terminate his hire. And the residents of the community started raising questions about this that had gotten out. And this had gotten out to other people outside or within law enforcement outside of Flossmoor. And so it got back to some other people within the community, as well as to the chief, that there was some rumor that his job was at risk. Flossmoor had what they call the Flossmoor Festival, I'm not sure how long that festival had been going on, but there was a Flossmoor Festival, and there were concerns about the security, concerns that the chief of police, Jarrell Jones, had raised, as well as the village manager and the mayor, as to how to secure the Flossmoor Festival. Well, the Flossmoor Festival went over, and there was a teen takeover. Now, you know, the teen takeover has been happening in different places. We had teen takeovers happen in Chicago, where you have the largest police department, in this area. Teen takeovers had taken place in places as far south as Chicago Heights, where people had gotten injured, and I think that there were a couple of deaths. Jarrell Jones had warned the administration about these teen takeovers, and that maybe it might be a good idea not to do the festival. Well, they rejected that idea, and they wanted the festival to go forth. There were things that he recommended that they needed to do in order to ensure stronger safety. They opted not to support those things. Anyway, the festival went on, and there was this teen takeover. And they used that as a vehicle to move towards terminating him. That was one of the big things that they talked about. Now, keep in mind that in the festival, there was no injuries. There were no injuries. There were no guns, knives, businesses disrupted, or any of that sort of thing. In fact, there was not even a news story about the Flossmoor Festival or the teen takeover within the Flossmoor Festival. Not so much as a news story. And the mayor, whose name is Michelle Nelson, and the village manager, Bridget Wachtal, they set out to terminate him. So someone contacted Craig Wembley, who is a member of 10 by 10 to Win, and he's also the president and chairman of COAL, which is Coalition of African American Leaders. Craig Wembley contacted me and apprised me of what was going on, and they were asking for some assistance in terms of trying to push back, fight back against this unfair approach, and certainly unwarranted. So we had a conversation with Jarrell Jones and asked a number of questions, a number of probing questions that we asked of him to find out just what was really going on. And so Jarrell helped us to understand that what was happening out there, and we asked him all kinds of probing questions, whether or not there was any misappropriation of funds, if there were any allegations of sexual misconduct, if there was any abuse of company time, any of those offenses that would have probably deemed warranted for some sort of disciplinary action. Even if, in fact, they were concerned about something that he did or did not do, certainly you would think that they may have taken some disciplinary actions, but nothing as stringent as terminating someone's job. I mean, terminating somebody's job, you terminate somebody's job because of something egregious that has taken place, that they have done within the first year of their employment. Well, they gave these reviews. The reviews got out, and in the reviews, nobody could see any justification for terminating his position. So there were board meetings. There were residents that showed up at board meetings in capacities that they had not attended for long periods of time, because they were very concerned about what was happening. Now, keep in mind, the administration is 100% white. There's not a single black person on the administration or in the administration of the current administration. Not one. You have 3 black trustees and you have 3 white trustees, but they are not in the administration. So there's a difference. So on the surface, it might seem that it looks diverse, but it is not by any stretch of the imagination at all. So we joined them in probing and trying to find out questions as to what was going on, and continue to press them for answers. And of course, they used all kinds of rules in terms of policies that they couldn't discuss, which really were just excuses not to be able to disclose information. But they did say that that the residents would be supportive of the administration's decision once all of the facts got out. Well, there were no additional facts beyond the reviews that people had already been apprised of and dismissed as any legitimate reasons or concerns to terminate Jarrell Jones at the time. Even people in the media were very confused as to, once they had this information and were asking questions that didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense about terminating someone. As a result, and we continued to work and getting to know the people in Flossmoor. And so we had different meetings and different meet and greets and about steps that they needed to take, and recognizing that, look, this administration does not reflect the makeup of this community. You have 63% of the population of Flossmoor that are black. 63% of the population are contributing heavily to the tax base in Flossmoor, and yet they have no voice whatsoever. Certainly is not respected by the current administration and the village manager, who's been there now 20 years. So basically, we had a conversation and said, the only way that you fight back is that you have to take equitable control in order to make sure that the voices of the black community in Flossmoor is respected. You're 63% of the population. There should never be a time where you're 63% of the population and that there's no one in the administration that reflects or represents the 63% of the population of Flossmoor. 23 or 26%, whatever that number is, of Flossmoor is white. 63% of the population of Flossmoor is black, but yet 100% of the administration is white, and they make whatever decisions that they want to make, despite the concerns of people from the African American community in Flossmoor. So to fast forward, they got together. And in fact, one of the advisory members by the name of Kevin Dorsey, who is now a candidate for trustee in Flossmoor, he resigned from his position or his post that was appointed by the mayor on the advisory council because he believed that the mayor did not provide information that warranted their decision, which they promised to provide information, and they would provide information that will convince everybody, including the advisory council, that their decision was just. Well, Kevin Dorsey was not satisfied with that. He resigned his post, and he is now a candidate for trustee of the board in Flossmoor. Joni Bradley Scott, who is a current trustee, is a candidate for mayor. 10 by 10 to win. The independent Black voting bloc here in Chicago, Cook County, and the state of Illinois voted to support the slated candidates of Flossmoor. That's how we got here. So today was our first day of service in that campaign, where we went and we did canvassing of the communities in Flossmoor this week, and there's going to be another one next week. And we had a chance to meet some of the residents there and engage them in asking for them to support the candidacy of Joni Bradley Scott. And we're going to work very hard to get the support that she needs, as well as the other down ballot seats of board, school board, the districts there, and trustees there, so that there is much more representation, or much more equitable representation of the Black community across the board in Flossmoor. So if you are interested in helping, please text 10x10 to the number 855-909-1385. That's 855-909-1385. And you can get into the text alert, and then you will receive the Zoom links that will come out on Thursdays, so that you can participate in the meetings and get more involved. So we're going to be working very hard on this campaign with the members out in Flossmoor, and we need as much support as possible for Joni Bradley Scott, so that she can win that race out in Flossmoor. All right. So, so next week we're going to be meeting at the Shops on Sterling at 1056 Sterling Avenue in Flossmoor at 11 o'clock. Shops on Sterling at 1056 Sterling Avenue. And so there's going to be several of the sororities that are going to be that have committed to participating. 10 by 10 to win is certainly all in. We even had the opportunity today to meet someone who had been trying to connect with us through 10 by 10 from Country Club Hills, and she came to meet us today out there, Latanya Ruffin, who is running for alderman out in Country Club Hills, and she's going to be participating with us in the meetings now, and so that we can get to know more about her, and she'll become a part of 10 by 10 to win, and hopefully we'll get more people in Country Club Hills, and hopefully it spreads to Hazelcrest and Dalton and Markham and all of the other communities. So we build this massive independent Black voting bloc, so that we can literally take equitable control of our governing bodies wherever we are, all the way to Springfield, as well as in Chicago, wherever, so that the Black community voice is going to be respected. And that means respected with substance, not just hyperbole, but with substance, making sure that we are equitably represented in every area that we absolutely pay into. That is the purpose of building our own independent Black voting bloc. Why? Because nobody can win an election, citywide, countywide, statewide, in Illinois without the Black vote. So the Black vote has been used by people in political office, but it has not been respected by people in political office. And since we have not been respected by people in political office, the only answer is that we have to take control of that. And the only way that we take control of that is we have to organize ourselves in the position so that we can determine who our representatives are going to be, who our candidates are going to be, as opposed to the party telling us who the people are going to be our candidates that we have the choice to vote for. That is a thing of the past. And we have to take control of that. And we're starting that process and growing and growing and growing. All right. So make sure that you continue to tune in. I'm not going to stay on very long, but I want to make sure that I answer some questions. All right. So there was a question here by Brandon Boost. Do you find it offensive that people seem to care more about the burning of well-to-do people's homes in Los Angeles than they do about everyday suffering of poor people in the ghetto and barrio of the trailer parks around America? That's a very good question, a very interesting question, Brandon. While we don't want for anybody to suffer loss, but I do find it interesting that there is this disproportionate attention to multi-million-dollar homes that are going to be built. Certainly, our thoughts and prayers go out to those people who lost their lives in this tragedy. But in terms of, on balance, how things are looked at and how critical it is, we're going to see what kind of attention is paid to helping people who are already wealthy and who, I'm sure they have tremendous insurance. And we're going to see how they are supported relative to how people in places like North Carolina and Mississippi and Georgia and other places who have suffered natural disasters, how they are treated. So I think that your question is appropriate, and I think that your question is worthy of probing and for us paying attention to how that response is. So I certainly think that it is very interesting. And I can appreciate your position of how much attention or is being paid to this and how critical that they're trying to be of the new mayor. And rather than getting the facts, and we're seeing how people are trying to politicize this to go after the mayor because the mayor is not a Republican. So I think it's going to be very interesting, and I think we should be very aware and pay attention to how it is that they treat this as to, juxtaposition as to how they would treat the people like the people who suffered down in New Orleans and the South. And so, yes, we certainly, again, pray for those families who have suffered the loss of their family members. Now, I'm from Miami, Florida, and my family we have, endured hurricanes and that sort of thing. We had the worst hurricane of our lifetimes back in 1994, Hurricane Andrew. And there was a lot of problems in terms of what the response was to help the people down in South Florida as a result of Hurricane Andrew. And let's see what the response is about helping this community of Pacific Palisade and in Los Angeles. I think it's very key. I think it's very interesting. I think it's very interesting. You really bring up a very interesting perspective. Brandon says, I thought Governor Newsom, so far has handled it very well, especially with Donald Trump trying to politicize this. Trump always has to turn everything into a political cajole. It is grotesque to me that we put this man in office again. Brandon, I couldn't agree with you more that It is an embarrassment to this country as a whole that we would think that somebody as offensive and someone as inept and someone as untrustworthy, who is a convicted felon found liable of sexual um, assault and guilty uh, of defrauding institutions. I mean, the fact that we would minimize the respectability of the office of presidency by allowing for this grotesque person to go back into that office, someone who was compromised the national security by um, holding on to and taking classified documents and refusing to turn them over. I think it is beyond disgusting that this is where we are, which I think that we have to be prepared. We have to be prepared to continuously push back at whatever it is that they're trying to do to disrupt forward progress and trying to take us back into a place that none of us need to go. I think that I think it's a terrible thing. I'm going to put up on the screen. I'm going to open it up for those who might want to call in and express their concerns. And very interesting of the juxtaposition of that. And so let me open up the call lines for those who might want to call in. And just give me a second here. I'll open the phone lines up, and you'll be able to call in just a second. Okay, hang on 1 second. I'll get you phone lines up. Give me a second here. We'll get the calls up. I should have done this because I didn't intend on being on long, but we'll get this going, and so you'll be able to call in. In 1 second. Okay, the telephone number is all right, there we go. So the telephone number is 951-221-8221. So if you want to call into the program, give me a call, and we will hear what your concerns is. I certainly would mind hearing from you, Brandon. Give us a call. And the other thing is that speaking of that, and I haven't talked about this much. I haven't talked about it much. I was very disappointed in a number of things that we did as Democrats. I am a Democrat. I'm going to be a Democrat, and there are reasons why. I'm going to do a future show to explain why the Democratic Party is the best that we have. Now, when I say the best, it needs some fixing. We need to infiltrate the Democratic Party and get it back to its core values of what we know the Democratic Party should be. And the way that we do that is we have to infiltrate that. So here we're building a independent black voting bloc here so that we can infiltrate the Democratic Party on every level, locally, all the way to our federal offices, so that the Democratic Party, those members of the Democratic Party, and people within the party who are not representing and reflecting those values, we have to replace them with people who will. But a third party option is not an option, and certainly jumping over to the enemy's camp of the Republican extremists is not an option for us. The best option for us is to organize ourselves together so that we can make those parts of the Democratic Party that does not work well for us work better. It's like a car. If you have a car and it has some misfunctions and it needs to be repaired, you take the car to the repair shop and you get those things that need to be repaired on the car so that the car runs better. That is the analogy that I use about the Democratic Party. Parts of the Democratic Party that's not working well, we need to get it fixed. whether it's the Pistons or whatever it is, we got to get it fixed so that the entire party works better. All right, 951-221-8221 is the number if you want to call in, and you got some comments. So, but hey, Brandon, yeah, your comments are certainly probing, and you're welcome to call. Okay, so I have no problems with you and having a conversation with you. I think that we have to collaborate ourselves together to fight back against this nonsense that we are now going to have to deal with with this upcoming administration. I am not looking forward to it, and I'm hoping that somehow, where we fail to do what we should have done in terms of not allowing for this man to get back there, that we can hold on for the next 2 years, and we can neutralize him by making sure that we take control of both those houses so that we can neutralize anything that he is trying to do to undo the progress that we have made in this country. That's what I believe that we are going to have to do. That's the work that we're certainly going to need to do to make sure that this guy does not just completely disband us, like the things that he's trying to do is take away people's birthright. I mean, he's certainly trying to do away with the Constitution, as he said that he would do. Which is even more astonishing to me is that he didn't make it a secret about what he was going to try to do, as ridiculous as it is, and he's certainly going to make attempts to derail that. And so we have to be in a position to make sure that we are vigilant and that we don't get distracted, and that we don't allow for them to distract us or have him turning us on each other while he runs away with the spoils. We all know how that goes, right? So, all right, listen, I want to again just thank you all for tuning in. Brandon, I certainly appreciate your comments. Continue to tune in. I'll see you guys back here on Monday night for the Monday night edition of The People Show on intellectualradio.com, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We'll be back here for another program, but I wanted to come on and talk to you just a little bit about what we did today and what we're going to be doing next week in the campaign of Flossmoor, Illinois. There was one other point that I was trying to get to, but I think that it has escaped me as we were talking about what's happening within this administration. Oh, this is the one thing that I want to talk about. And I know that I am going to catch flack about this. I'm going to catch a lot of heat about this. And I do not have any problem whatsoever at catching flack about this. I believe that Cornel West, who is a man of great intelligence and someone who understands socially what the consequences are, who understands what's going on in the disparities in this country, for Cornel West to do what I think was the most unconscionable thing by discouraging people to go to vote. And when I say discouraged, the way that he attacked the Democratic Party, and with this, failed attempt to have an independent candidacy, rather than going to the Democratic Party and saying to the Democratic Party, listen, we need to have a conversation about the things that whatever they were, that he's concerned about. But to put us in this position And I believe that Cornel West played a role at discouraging people from even going to the polls, that enough people were influenced by his rhetoric that they did not even vote. And maybe some of them voted for the Trump campaign. But I think that Cornel West was what Jill Stein was to the 2016 election with Hillary Clinton, where she siphoned off enough votes that the orange man was able to become the president the first time around. And I think that Cornel West discouraged enough people where the orange man was able to circumvent going to prison, being tried, and held accountable for his action. For that, I have lost respect for Cornel West because I thought that Cornel West had far better judgment. And I don't want to hear any nonsense about that you have to have this, you know, righteous opposition. What he did was unconscionable. What he did was unthinkable and was irresponsible. And I take absolutely, it is unequivocal to me that he would do such a thing. And I don't know if he was not compensated to do what he did. It's just unconscionable. It's unthinkable. And I thought that Cornel West thought about the country and certainly thought about the community much better than his conduct, period. All right, that's going to do it for me, folks. Thank you all for tuning in. And I look forward to seeing you all right back here on Monday night for the Monday night edition of The People Show right here on intellectualradio.com, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Good night and have yourselves a great rest of your weekend.